If you're new here, hi, my name is Maiga Vidal and I'm a musical theater writer, music producer, multi-hyphenate, content creator, however many things you want to throw at me, whatever sticks on the wall like spaghetti, that's what I am. But anyway, hi, how are y'all? Now listen, I did promise I was going to make this video and post it last week, but did I? No. And that is because, as you can see from behind me, we are in a completely different place. I am actually in upstate New York right now, and I am currently in my new apartment. Woohoo! If you have been following the cross-country saga from this summer, you know that I currently reside in Maryland, but all of that is coming to an end, and I'm very happy to report on it because it means that finally everyone is all together again, and I get to actually build the office the way that I want. But I figure, as promised, I would make a video on Star Signs, my musical, which is just like the internet working title. I do have to be honest, I did have a lot of resistance in making this video, and that comes from the fact that I had a huge epiphany 3 days ago. But I figure instead of having that epiphany be in the vlog, which it will be because fortunately I happen to be recording that day, I decided that I would kind of round out my entire experience with this project, as I've actually been cataloging this project for the length that I've been working on it. You can click here and here, or I guess these are the thumbnails. But anyway, I have a nice, neatly numbered list, and we're going to break it down and talk about the past, the present, and then of course, the future. And so with that, let's start with number one, history. I actually have videos that I made about this project from 3 years ago, but what's really important to note is that this was a concept album that I wrote manically in like 72 hours based on my thoughts on each zodiac sign. They weren't particularly gendered. The goal of that was just like a writing exercise of trying to write character in more of like a broad stroke kind of way instead of like the pencil focused work of like usual musical theater. I wrote that after being inspired by this Instagram post, and I wrote it super fast, recorded it, and sent it out to a theater person who I admire and love. I was looking for a book writer, give me a bit of structure, as I really did want to write this as a musical, even though it started as a concept album at first, and the person I sent it to never replied back. And I know them personally, so it really was kind of that moment of, oh, well, this is clearly not a good enough project to move forward. And so 3 years ago, I essentially was like, okay, well, I'm just not writing musicals anymore. And so then 3 years passed, almost exactly to the date. I went to my BMI audition, made it to the final round, didn't make it into the cohort, was kind of burnt out on writing my Latina queer POC musical, Café con Leche, and was looking for a project to kind of sink my teeth into. Well, I put that on the back burner and kind of gave it some time to just like relax, and that was at around April. And I was talking with John, my mentor. Lessons with John is a little series I have on my vlog, and he mentioned if I had another project that maybe I wanted to revise or spend some time sort of leveling up. And I mentioned to him that I had this concept album I wrote, and so he was like, okay, play it for me. Played it for John. John said there's a lot of broad strokes in these songs, but enough material where you can write a little black box show, maybe a song cycle. And that's kind of where we are in terms of history. So let's jump to number two, rewriting, revising process. I have made lots of vlogs about this because I like to be kind of consistent with the updates as they happen, as writing is, especially writing musicals, is a long-term affair. So I wrote the script of Star Signs in full, which was about 24 pages on this week. I made a vlog about it, so I'm not gonna rehash too much. But I wrote the script in a couple of days, kind of the book of the show, which I then put in the songs that I'd already written with the clear purpose of rewriting. After writing that draft and getting some feedback, I decided that I wanted to do a reading of that 25-page script. So in mentioning that I wanted to do a reading and talking with some friends, Twitter is both a cursed place, but also like a really cool, like Theater Kid Hangout. So if you're not on Twitter, I guess jump on before the ship dies. It's how I ended up getting connected to Ryan Duncan Ayala, who actually suggested that I do my first reading on Zoom because, you know, the pandemic is still a thing. And also it gave me a bit more freedom about casting who I could. And so they gave me Zoom Hangout for the El Centro Productions. And that kind of gave me the space and also a deadline. In talking with John about it though, and talking to him about it, he was like, that's great, but also have you considered that by having a reading, that means that whatever's on the page is sort of final in this version, and if there's something that you want to change, you need to actually do that before it happens. And so with that in mind, I did an essential crash revising of star signs for the month of September, particularly the week I was in Los Angeles with my mom. Yeah, I added about 25 pages to the newly revised script of the show, and it started turning into what I like to pitch as Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, which is really a play with songs rather than like a musical. I officially hit end of play like 24 hours before the reading, and I sent that the night of. All of this, which leaves us into section 3, casting, funding, expenditures, all that thing about theater, right? Because ultimately you need a producer or somebody who's willing to fund the space or the time, right, to do this. And so in terms of funds, I didn't end up using any. I was very lucky, as I mentioned with Ryan, they let me use the Zoom space of El Centro Productions. By using their space, I didn't have to pay for Zoom, and we also didn't have the free one, so this one could run for the entirety of the length of the play, which included like an intro, the reading of the play, and then a Q&A at the end where people were able to give me feedback. So, you know, we weren't rushed in the space. Also, the fact we did it online did make it much more affordable, as I didn't have to pay for like a room to read at and things like that. And then all the actors were either personal friends who are actors for a living, or they saw my casting notice, which I ran both on Twitter and my Discord, and I was able to get connected to people through there. And it was really nice because there were either people I didn't know very well, or friends of friends of friends who were professional actors who wanted to jump on and read this. And it just shows you how big online connections can be, and that's pretty good. I would say that theater tends to be pretty inaccessible, especially to people like myself. I am an immigrant, I am Latina, I am a woman. All those things kind of hinder the access to money that I have, which is very little. I do not make any money. If you'd like to support a new theater writer, consider giving me $1 on Patreon. It was very inexpensive to do because I had people who supported the work. Okay, let's jump to section 4, the reading. Now, it's very different to like be at a reading as an actor, which I've done and definitely did a lot in undergrad when I was studying, getting my theater like degree. And then it's another to attend the reading as the composer, the lyricist, the playwright, because I ended up doing all of it. Unfortunately, for the time constraints and also the fact that I did such an intense rewrite literally the day before, and also like I didn't have a chance to work on the songs. It was really like a mostly book edit rewrite. There was no music at this reading, which I will talk about in the next section. And so it was really a cast of 5. We had about 15 people in attendance, and then obviously the other 10 were there either as spectators, as audience, but also people who were going to give notes and critique the work. We had the reading on the 29th of September, and it was amazing and harrowing, and it was like an out-of-body experience to sit there and not be in control, right? As someone who like writes, there's a way that you think that things sound, and then when you bring in an actor, they interpret the text in a way that maybe you didn't expect, and it adds this new shade of color and beauty to the work that, again, things that you couldn't have seen, like tendrils and shades that maybe you wrote subconsciously, get brought out by actors who know what they are doing, which is why actors it was so gratifying to have my work in their hands, to hear the words presented to me in a way that I mean, it was incredible in that sense. It's a very humbling experience. Obviously, every typo becomes evident, every beat you might have missed, every connective thought that wasn't apparent in the writing process becomes so apparent when it's taken out of your hands and performed by people who have not spent, you know, months trying to rewrite this. I mean, I guess this project is years old now. Obviously, I was really embarrassed about the lack of music. It's one thing to have me play what I've written, and it's another thing for it to fit into the story I've written, and then it's another to send that work to your actors. And I wasn't past that first step. And that was a bit embarrassing because people are coming to see a musical and what they got was like a play. And I sent them like the video of the songs that I'd written, but there had been some changes from that time. But section 5, the Q&A feedback, you're bearing your soul, and there is a lot of pain that comes from getting feedback and criticism in a way that could feel really damaging. But I knew the people that I invited were gonna do it in a way that felt really responsible to the art making process. And it was just this really divine process of legitimately workshopping the piece and getting criticism and critique on both nitty-gritty, maybe line decisions, and also overall plot structure, all of which I was desperately looking for, as I'm not really a book writer, I'm mostly a songwriter by trade. With that being said, let's jump to section 6, the aftermath. I want to talk a bit about kind of where I've been in the headspace that I've been in, which led to the epiphany I had last week. So the aftermath was very revealing to me. In all the criticism I received, I felt overwhelmed because, as I mentioned, I'm not really into writing the book of a musical, which is really about writing the story, right? Writing songs is about writing the beats, the connective tissue to the overall plot of the musical. And that could be done pretty systematically, at least in my personal opinion. Whereas writing the book of a musical, which I genuinely feel is the hardest thing, and again, playwrights, a really great skill that people don't give enough credit to, write the actual roller coaster. And my star signs journey went from being let's rewrite the songs to spending all my time focusing on writing this curve, this outline of the show. And not even an outline, physically writing the beats, the connective tissue through dialogue to tell a story with a satisfying beginning, middle, and end. All of which I had no experience doing, hence the leveling up concept of working on star signs these last 6 months. And so after getting the feedback, I realized that I had to sort of make a decision. And I talked about this with John, because when I meet with John, what I like to do is usually present a song. And I've been having a lot of trouble song writing, which I've never really experienced before. I'm a very prolific writer. And in the last 6 months, ever since the BMI thing, ever since the starting of this revision process, I've realized that I haven't written a song worth a damn. This is something John has been hinting at, but has sort of refused to tell me outright, because I'm a very stubborn person, and he knows that unless I come to the epiphany on my own, I won't actually stop. I have a new version of the opening number, which was originally a monologue, and I wrote the opening song and it wasn't good. I'm not going to play it here. There'll probably be some snippet of it in the vlog. I realized 2 things in that moment. It's that A, I didn't know the story well enough to write a character-driven song, and B, I had a lot of fun writing hooky, memorable lines, and I hadn't done that in a long time. And so I've been kind of sitting on the cusp, the verge of making an important decision, because ultimately I've sank so much time into this project. It's a project that I've publicly talked about here on YouTube, that I've publicly talked about to other theater people, that I've sort of become known for, quote unquote, in my local theater circle. And by local, I do mean chronically online theater circle. And so I'm at the point where it's do I make a decision, an active decision, to rewrite it or put it in the back burner? So let's jump to section 7, the future. What is the future of star signs? The revelation I had literally this week was I don't want to work on this project anymore. I kind of wish I'd never done the reading of this project at all, actually. It needs so much revision on the story side that it makes the songwriting the last thought. And that's not something I want to do anymore. If I were to sit down and revise this again, which would be my third revision in total for the duration of the project, like write the original version, the revision I did of writing the book, taking it from like a concept album to an actual story, and then the third draft is the one I wrote in September. And so like, if I spent more time on the rewrite, is that where I want my time to go? Considering what I'm trying to achieve, right? Which is like writing this new BMI portfolio, writing potentially to apply to grad school. All those things together have made me reach the revelation that, yeah, the future of this project is, it's dead to me. I might revise it someday, as I wrote in the email that I sent the lovely people who gave me their time, their expertise, and their feedback and their space. It's like, you know, I might hit you up in 3 more years when I attempt to revise this project again. But for right now, like the leaves falling outside my window, did you know that this is my first ever fall I've actually lived through in a state where leaves fall? It's time for it to go into hibernation for a very, very, very long time. I don't feel any joy in writing it anymore, and I'm honestly embarrassed that there is a version of it out there. But I think that without all those things happening, I would have never reached this thought, which I guess I've been working towards. I am excited again about writing Café con Leche. And so Star Signs did what it needed to do. It leveled me up, and it also made me ache to return to sort of my main musical. But it's also springboarded other musicals that have been sitting in the back of my mind. And all of a sudden I have this itch to write these works. Future is really following through the Machado song cycle now that I have a vision for it, which is the poet, the interpreter, and kind of everything around what it means when a poet comes to visit from a different country and they have the interpreter, they fall in love, you know? Because I love rom-coms, that's what I'm gonna write. I wanna write love stories for Latina people in musical theater. It doesn't all need to be like fucking horrid suffering. Why is In the Heights our only happy musical? I'm also writing what I would consider, I think, to be my magnum opus, which is about the process of immigration. As someone who has lived through it and is very intimate with it, I really do feel qualified to write deeply about this process. But yeah, out of this Star Signs project, those 3 projects have been given the time to, you know, the seeds were planted, and now they're starting to sprout. And Café con Leche is obviously the one that's furthest along, but the other 2 aren't, you know, they aren't too far behind in terms of songs. I think out of really any sort of writing profession and any artistic thing, theater is the most cringe, and you have to be able to live with the fact that before it gets any good, it's going to be cringe. And so with that, if you have any questions about theater making, or especially online, as that's really the primary thing that I've been working on, let me know. I am very interested in talking to other theater makers and in general, just knowing your thoughts, or if you have any questions about the writing process. So with that, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, I guess subscribe, like, share, and with that I will see you next week with a new vlog, because this is an impromptu video that I'm recording literally right now, because I was watching back the September vlog and I'm like, I did promise to make this, but I hate the show now. But I guess I should give people closure, because I did promise that. So there's the closure. Don't ask me anything about it, just kidding. All right. I love y'all. Bye.